Hi everyone, this is Mrs. D. I'm going to try to go over chapter 2 and 3 in 10 minutes or less. Chapter 2 is when Scout goes to school for the very first time. Now there is no kindergarten in this time period, so she's about 6 years old and she can already read and write, and that is not something that her first grade teacher is ready to deal with. Miss Caroline is a brand new teacher, never been in the classroom before. She isn't prepared for somebody like Scout. And when Scout can read and can write, Miss Caroline wants Scout to stop learning at home because her father is doing it all wrong. So I would ask you, how can Atticus be doing it wrong if Scout can read and write? The chapter isn't so much about advancing the plot as it is about introducing characters and future themes. So we're introduced to Miss Caroline. She is a minor character, but without Scout being in the classroom, we wouldn't get one of the most important lessons that we get in chapter 3. Another problem that comes up in chapter 2 is with Walter Cunningham. Now, Miss Caroline is basically checking out everybody's lunches, going up and down rows. And when Walter doesn't have lunch, Miss Caroline offers to give him a quarter, but he won't take it. When Walter shook his head a third time, someone whispered, "Go on and tell her, Scout." I turned around and saw most of the town people and the entire bus delegation looking at me. Miss Caroline and I had conferred twice already, and they were looking at me in the innocent assurance that familiarity breeds understanding. I rose graciously on Walter's behalf. Miss Cunningham? What is it, Jean Louise? Miss Caroline, he's Cunningham. I sat back down. What, Jean Louise? I thought I had made things sufficiently clear. It was clear enough to the rest of us. Walter Cunningham was sitting there lying his head off. He didn't forget his lunch. He didn't have any. He had none today, nor would he have any tomorrow or the next day. He had probably never seen 3 quarters together at the same time in his life. I tried again. Walter's one of the Cunninghams, Miss Caroline. I beg your pardon, Jean Louise? That's okay, ma'am. You'll get to know all the county folks after a while. The Cunninghams never took anything they can't pay back. No church baskets and no scrim stamps. They never took anything off of anybody. They get along on what they have. They don't have much, but they get along on it. So, Cunninghams, poor but proud, won't take handouts, send their kids to school, clean clothes, mended clothes, but old clothes. And again, a lot of pride. Now, Scout had once asked her father if they were poor, and he agrees, we are indeed, but not as poor as the Cunninghams. Again, Atticus is a lawyer, lives in town, actually even owns a car. Cunninghams live outside town, very, very poor. Now, they are going to be with us from the beginning till the end. Okay, just keep that in mind. They're going to be with us. So it's a really short chapter. It ends with the kids going for their lunch, and Scout shows the tiniest bit of feelings here. Miss Carol, let me see. As I was the last to leave, I saw her sink down into her chair and bury her head in her arms. Had her conduct been more friendly toward me, I would have felt sorry for her. She was a pretty little thing. Now keep in mind, this is a Bildungsroman. Scout is going to go through 3 summers of growth, and we're going to see quite a different girl. Now, I'm giving you a key. Growth, different. My question to you is, what kind of character is Scout? Okay, moving right into chapter 3. Might go over that 10 minutes, but we shall see. So Scout goes outside to the lunch recess area, and she starts beating up poor Walter Cunningham, who is saved by Jem, and Jem invites Walter to their home for lunch. Now, this is a really, really big deal for Walter, because number one, he doesn't usually get lunch, so to be invited to somebody's house for lunch, pretty impressive. Lunch was a formal meal. It was the biggest meal of the day in this time period. So Walter is sitting with Atticus, and he's sitting Atticus is right. That is the spot for a guest. And they're having a very, very grown-up conversation about agriculture and farming and hunting. And we find out that Walter and his family, they've been eating squirrel. I mean, things are really, really bad, but they have been having to eat squirrel. Now, he asks if there's any syrup. Now, syrup in this time period would be equivalent to molasses. It's very thick, very dark, very heavy, and it's not like maple syrup. And Calpurnia brings it in, and this is one of my most favorite scenes in the book. While Walter piled food on his plate, he and Atticus talked together like two men, to the wonderment of Jem and me. Atticus was expounding upon farm problems when Walter interrupted to ask if there was any molasses in the house. Atticus summoned Calpurnia, who returned bearing the syrup pitcher. She stood waiting for Walter to help himself. Walter poured syrup on his vegetables and meat with a generous hand. He would have probably have poured it into his milk glass had I not asked, "What the Sam Hill are you doing?" The silver saucer clattered when he replaced the pitcher and quickly put his hands in his laps. Then he ducked his head. So I want you thinking of a food that you're not getting right now. Okay, something you would love to have and can't have it. Think about when you finally can have it, you're going to indulge yourself in that food. Well, Walter's having an opportunity to indulge himself, but Scout embarrasses him. She doesn't really understand another person's habits. And Calpurnia, as we've mentioned, or as I've mentioned, is a role model for Scout and a disciplinarian. And Calpurnia calls Scout outside and says, "That boy's your company. And if he wants to eat up the tablecloth, you let him. You hear?" So Calpurnia, furious. "He ain't company, Cal. He's just a Cunningham. Hush your mouth. Don't matter who they are. Anybody sets foot in this house, your company. And don't you let me catch you remarking on their ways like you so high and mighty. You folks might be better than the Cunninghams, but it don't count for nothing the way you're disgracing them. If you can't act fit to eat at the table, you can just sit here and eat at the kitchen." I love that scene. So Scout is embarrassed. She's had a really rough day on her first day of school. Jem and Walter walk back to school ahead of her, and she is alone with Calpurnia, and she goes by herself back to school. And when she is there is the cootie scene. Now, cooties are head lice, okay? Head lice, the cootie scene. So I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to pick up with the middle of chapter 3 in my next video because I don't want these to be too long. They take forever to download. See you in a little bit.